happening in this system. So when somebody writes code and when it's done, they check it in and it's integrated with everything else, and then everything happens periodically, every 4 hours. All of the unit tests, all of the component tests, all of the integration tests are rerun against the code base after check-ins have happened. Again, more detailed description of how we did this in the article called Mission Made Possible on our basic library page, but just a quick overview. Here we see the programmers are creating Java code and JUnit unit component integration tests in their daily development. This is just standard Agile stuff here, right? The test-driven development type of thing happening. Okay. Which, by the way, is not new to Agile. It's another idea that's been around a good 20 years or so. At the end of each day, the programmers check their work in to Perforce, their source code repository, but it's not done yet, so it's just there for safekeeping. But then when it's actually done, the code has been approved, the unit tests all passed, they check it into Perforce labeled as ready for test. And then every 4 hours, this cruise control goes and checks Perforce and says, hey, you got anything new checked in the last 4 hours? If the answer is yes, it checks out all of the labeled code, everything's been labeled as ready to go, runs the J-test, static test that look for violations, static analysis, does build, deploys into the test environment, and then it runs all of the tests, every single test that's been built up to that point, creates a status report, emails that to the programmers, leads, and managers. Okay. Total tool budget for the development of this was $20,000 for the test license. Everything else was freeware off of the internet. Took my associates and I a total of about 18 person weeks, a little less than 18 person weeks to put this together, and that included training everybody how to do it, training on the organizing process, and doing a thorough risk analysis. So again, what's the missing piece? You know, it's not, again, this was not expensive, and it's not time. 3 people for 6 weeks, 3 consultants for 6 weeks. You know, this is not a time thing. It's the missing piece, discipline. It's just discipline. We know how to do this stuff. We've known how to do this stuff for a long time. We just need to do it. It's all out there. Okay, now, so I've been stressing this discipline. We got to do the stuff that we know we ought to be doing. You know, and we shouldn't be surprised when we don't, and bad things happen. You know, I mean, if you don't brush your teeth, then you have dental problems later, right? I mean, this is not a shock to anybody. So, you know, let's not rationalize this. We got to have the discipline. But okay, discipline is part of it, but there are other parts. So, teamwork. I think it's not revolutionary to say quality is built into a product step by step. Right? Every step along the way, we got opportunities to increase the quality of the work products or decrease them. So we got to work together, all of us, requirements engineers, business analysts, developers, testers, users, marketing, sales, tech support. Everybody's got to work together to do this. We're going to have a quality product. And working together doesn't necessarily require that we all be friends. And I don't have to, if I'm on a project, I don't necessarily have to spend a lot of personal time with people. It's great if that happens. It's great if you have friends at work. But that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is effectively working together. We have to not be enemies. We have to all agree that quality is an objective that we all have, that we're all responsible for. And we have to be careful not to be enemies, that don't damage work relationships, because once they get damaged, it's very hard to repair. So let me give you an example of that. We went in for one client, we did a big quality process assessment. An associate of mine and I, we spent about 6 weeks working with these guys on and off various sites, talking to people, talking to everybody we could find, testers and non-testers. And there was a lot of antagonism. So you talk to people outside of the testing organization, you ask them, what's the value of testing? What's the objective? Why do you have testing teams here? What are you trying to accomplish? Most of them would say, testing has no value. We heard that quote over and over again. Testing has no value. Man, that's bad. If you're a tester and you've got people in your organization who are walking around thinking, this person's a total waste of oxygen. We would be better off without this person. This can't turn out well. The testers, on the other hand, would say, oh, geez, you know, the business analysts, the programmers, they're all lazy. They wouldn't do anything right if we weren't around to police them. And that's how they saw their role. They saw themselves as quality cops. Everybody loves cops, right? So this is part of the problem, that they're not endearing themselves to people because they're just running around saying, you should do this, you have to do that. You know, oh, okay, those business analysts, those programmers, they just take all sorts of shortcuts and they damage the quality of the product, and we think they're lazy and stupid. Okay? So the testers think that everybody else is lazy and stupid, and everybody else thinks that the testers have no value. And, you know, when we try to talk to people about how would you work together to resolve the situation, nobody wanted to work together to resolve the situation. They wanted to see the other side fired. All the testers thought that the business analysts and programmers should be replaced, and all the business analysts and programmers thought the testers should be fired and replaced. So, rather fight. They'd rather be right than work together. So, I had a phone call with the executives who sponsored the assessment, and I said, I hate to use cliches here, but this is a classic good news and bad news scenario. And they said, okay, well, what's the good news? I said, the good news is that you're about 18 to 24 months away from having real world-class quality. We looked at the metrics and so forth of their processes and the level of quality that they were delivering. They were good. I said, here's the bad news. You can't get there with the current team. You can't do it because they will not cooperate. They simply will not work together to solve these problems that you have. We had this discussion about what to do, and they said, well, what if we fired some people? I said, who would you pick? They're all equally culpable in this thing because none of them will work with the others. You can't just point to one of them and say, there's the bad guy, get rid of him and everything will get better. They said, well, what if we fired all of the senior managers? I said, you can't do that because the line managers below them spend all of their time running around putting out fires that are caused by the conflict within the team. So you have nobody capable of stepping up to take the place of the managers at the top that are the ones who are really creating the venom. And the bad relationships, the worst parts were the relationships at the top. The senior managers were the ones that would really sit around and spend time trying to figure out how to make their colleagues look bad. Down at the line manager level and the individual contributor level, they were too busy trying to put out the fires to fight. But sadly, none of those people could be promoted. So the end result was that pretty much all of the IT work got outsourced. So everybody got fired. So, no, this is not good. Excuse me. Now, I mean, for those of you who say, well, you know, some amount of conflict is inevitable within an organization, that might be true, but some amount, not that amount, not to the point where you basically commit organizational suicide, right? So we had another project that was the complete opposite of that. We had requirements and design happening in San Jose, California. We had a system vendor in Taiwan, component vendors in Salt Lake City, Utah, a test lab in Taiwan, test lab in Los Angeles. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for miscommunication and relationship issues when you get that many parties involved, but we had good coordination and we worked together as a team. That project we delivered on time, with quality, on budget. Again, you know, this is stuff we know how to do. It's just we don't always do it. You know, when we get along and we work together, we can succeed. If we squabble, we will fail. Okay. So, People have to get along, they have to work together, but they also have to be competent. Again, to go back to the example I was talking about earlier, watching kids play football or something like that. They might get along together, but they're not necessarily very good. They're following the same process as the adults, but they make a lot of mistakes, right? So, similarly, it's not enough to have people following good process and doing some of the things that I talked about before if they don't know how to do them right. You have to have good skills. So, if your job is managing quality, then you have to make sure that the skills of the people building the software are also being managed. They know what they need to know to do this. Now, skills assessment, this is not, again, not a revolutionary idea. If you've happened to see my book, Managing the Testing Process, there's a discussion in there about how to identify through what's called task analysis what the critical skills are within your team. What do they need to know to do what they need to do? And then you can rate people on their level of skill. And you can find gaps and you can improve it. Again, this is well-established human resources stuff. I didn't invent this technique for the book. I just included it in the book. We know how to do this. We just need to do it. We also need to be serious about how long does it take to get good. There's stuff that's hard to do. Malcolm Gladwell published a book called Outliers. I don't know if you've read that or seen it. Some people like Malcolm Gladwell's writing, some people don't. But in this book, he makes a very interesting observation. The book is about what makes people successful. And so he looks at a lot of different factors that are involved in becoming a successful person. And one of the things he looks at is how long does it take to master something? How long does it take to become an expert? And what he found is, there's a magic number here, 10,000 hours. Any sort of intellectually complex task, playing a piano, writing software, running performance tests, doing test automation, any intellectually complex task would take you about 10,000 hours to become an expert at it. 10,000 hours is about 5 years. Okay? So let's be realistic about what it means to be an expert. I've seen some skills assessments done where people will count themselves as being experts in something, and I would say, well, how many years of experience do you have? Oh, 6 months. I'm sorry, you're not an expert. Unless something's trivial, you're not going to be an expert